Hi, Tim. Welcome to Smooth Country.
Thank you.
I've never thought I'd say these words out loud, but welcome to my house as well in England. These are weird times, aren't they?
Thanks for having me in. Welcome to my home.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that too. That's lovely. Well, the album, exciting times for you. I know it's a busy time for you. The first solo album in 5 years. I was wondering, how long was it in the making? And also, with these weird times we've got, have you had to tweak anything to make it fit more now for today?
It's a good question. We've been working on this album for 2.5 to 3 years. We started working on it at the end. Faith and I did 2 years of a Soul to Soul tour, and during that time we did a duets album, which was a lot of fun to make and a lot of hard work. And the tour was really busy and a lot of hard work. And toward the end of the last leg of the Soul to Soul tour, I started collecting songs, and I started getting songs that were starting to tell a story to me. So I wanted to go in and start recording those songs, because once you start phasing out of one thing, and as a creative person, you start thinking about what you're going to do next. And so I had these songs, and I started thinking about what I wanted them to sound like, what I wanted the production value to be. Started thinking about all those things. And secondly, I knew that I'd been working with Faith for 2 years, and she is one of the best singers on the planet. So I knew that, having worked with her for those 2 years, and I knew from experience working with her, that I'm always a much, much better singer after just finishing working with her, because she's so good, and you have to keep up with her on stage every night, and you have to be on point every night, because you don't want to get that look from her if you're not on point. So I was ready to go in and record. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to cut an album with these vignettes of stories, sort of these cinematic scenes that you could walk throughout the album, and sort of paint a picture with each song. And they started collecting themselves, and they started showing up, and the music started making more and more sense to me. Now, I didn't want to make necessarily a concept album, but I did want it to have some sort of theme. Some of the songs are like a 30,000-foot view of life, and they're a little bit more ethereal about life. Some songs you sort of take a dive in, and they're more intimate, and they get behind the heart of a relationship, or what goes on in your head in a relationship, and those sorts of things. And then a few, like I call Mama, came in sort of at the last minute, and Gravy at the last minute. And all this was before pre-COVID. And then once we had the pandemic hit, we did go back and look at a lot of things that we had already mixed, because we thought, are we missing, because of what's going on in the world, are we missing any emotional points that we haven't addressed, or maybe that we missed in the mixing of the album that we would have maybe mixed different, knowing what's happening in the world right now? And there were a few that did change mix-wise. Some stayed the same. And then we thought about, okay, do we want to put an album out amidst all of this? I mean, is it the right time? Is it the right thing to do? And the more we lived with this music, and the more we started shaving down what was actually going to be on the album, because we had recorded 27, 28 songs, and we loved all of them. So having to narrow this album down, I think the times and the situation helped us to narrow the album down. And I think naming the album Here on Earth, and what the album said, and the vignettes of life that it proposed, and as an artist, to try to make a record, on one hand, is a little bit of an escapism, like right from the strings of LA, right off into the album. You can dive into the album and get lost in it. But at the same time, puts its finger on the pulse of a lot of things that people are going through in their personal lives and in their relationships. Doing both of those things at the same time is a pretty tough task. And I think with this album, it does those things. And at this point in time that we live in, I just felt like that it was actually the perfect time to put this record out.
Well, I have to say, one of the reasons I asked that question was because I've listened to the album earlier today, and I think it fits perfectly anyway. And some of the themes, and you mentioned the cinematic quality too, and some of the videos. It's very emotive stuff. It's very dramatic, some of it. I'm thinking of I Call Mama, and then I looked at the title track video again as well. And it's really strong stuff. And it seems to, I suppose, almost hit home more now. But I'm going to ask you, I think, what's going to be a very difficult question for you. LA, the opening track, I love that, the big orchestra sound, and it really invites you into the album. But what's your favorite song, if you can answer that, from the new album?
You said it, LA.
Oh, really?
Yes, LA is probably one of my favorite records I've ever made in my entire career. I absolutely love, like you said, I love the intro to that song. It puts you in mind of all those great Glenn Campbell, Jimmy Webb songs from the 70s. It just, I love singing it. I love sonically the way it sounds. And it sets up what I think this album sort of feels like to me in a lot of ways. It's timeless. I mean, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that could have been a big song. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that song could still be relevant. And I feel like the way we approached this album, the way we recorded this album, the sounds that we used in this album, and the themes that we used in this album has that timeless feel.
But the messages you're pushing through as well, like, you know, love, respect, look after each other, these things we should do every day. And of course, some of us maybe do it a little less than others at times. But in these times, it really resonates even more. And we are in divisive times too. So, you know, we need to be reminded of this stuff, don't we?
We absolutely do. I mean, and I think that's the great thing about art. I think art has always, 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 throughout our history, in our worst and our troubled times, art's always raised its hand to say that I'm here for you. I will get you through this. I'll be your catharsis. I'll be your landing pad. I'll be your escape. And I think that great art has always done that throughout history. And I'm proud that I'm involved in this. I'm proud that I am an artist, and that during these times that we have a voice that can speak out and do those things for people.
And I think I'm working in radio as well. I know the reaction we get from people. Sometimes you can almost take for granted what you do, if that's not, you know, if that makes sense. And then people will connect with you and then make you realize that sometimes you can make a bit of a difference. But what I wanted to ask you as well is, you remember the times when film stars and recording artists used to be a little more aloof? They would release whatever they release and then they'd step back into their mansions again. But we're in interesting times because, for example, the likes of you and your family, you share a lot online and you show us your dog on Twitter and or your fishing trip in the Caribbean, which I was very envious of, to be honest. It looked fantastic. So you're building stronger connections with people these days too, aren't you?
You are, and it's good, I think, too. But I also think that there's a bit of mystery that needs to be there. And I think a bit of that mystery is where the magic is in believing in the music sometimes. So I think that certainly because of the times that we live in and the access that we have and the social media, all those things are good, and they're right. There are ways to use them and there are ways to enjoy them and ways to engage with them, that you can engage with your fans a little differently and more than you used to. But I also think that there still needs to be a little bit of mystery when you can.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you're inviting me into your house up to a point, and likewise, I'm doing it with you. But, you know, I haven't asked you to stay over for a month or something like that. So, you know, you must be bursting, though, to get back on the road.
Yeah, I miss it. I mean, there's nothing like playing in front of 30,000 people and playing new, especially having this new music, which I love, and I think is probably the best record I've ever made. To be able to be out on stage and play this music for folks and get that interaction. There's nothing like that 2 hours of suspended animation where you both agree that you're not going to be who you are 8 hours of the day or most of the time in your life, and I'm not going to be who I am most of the time in my life. I mean, trust me, I'm not a guy in a cowboy hat jumping around like a chicken on a hot plate most of my day. So for these 2 hours, we're going to agree that we're just going to enter into this relationship, that we're going to get lost and enjoy ourselves and enjoy the music. And there's a euphoria and there's a medicine that comes with that we're sorely missing. And I know I miss it, and I'm sure the fans do.
Absolutely. Well, Here on Earth is out on Friday, and you promised us an extravaganza, a live stream event as well. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be what we wanted to do is, you know, we can't go give a concert, we can't go play music live, but we wanted to do the next best thing. How can we get with our fans in the best way that we can and give them something that's got a value to it, and something that means something, and something that just isn't just sort of thrown up and sort of thrown at them. And we wanted to produce something that had a good production quality. We have great video stuff. We have some great lighting. We're in a great setting. I'm going to play some of the new songs, a couple of the hits, talk about my process of making the record, talk about songwriting, and some of my songwriter friends talk about their process in writing a song, and particularly writing a song for me. And then a couple of special guests are going to show up and play a little bit for us too.
Oh, I'm intrigued even more now. I'm just going to have to wait till Friday. I wanted to ask you as well. I mean, you're a guy who's obviously, you're very deep thinking. You've got your life sorted. But has the lockdown situation, has it made you rethink your life as well? Have you had a bit of a wake up moment like a lot of people have had?
I don't know that I've had a wake up moment, except reevaluating. What's the next steps out of this. I think if you're in the middle of something like this and you don't take an opportunity to learn something about yourself, learn something about the people around you, learn something about your craft. If you don't take that opportunity to learn, then you've missed an opportunity, because some of the best opportunities come in times of crisis. So I think that as an artist, I think I'm figuring out my value more, if that makes any sense. I think I'm understanding my value more as an artist and what art means, as we discussed a little bit earlier. I'm certainly understanding the meaning and the closeness and the importance of a tight relationship with your family. Even though we all thought we had a tight relationship and knew we had a tight relationship, this made it tighter and better. And it made you concerned for your fellow citizens, and it made you concerned for what's going on in the world and what's going to happen next in the world. And how do we start and march down the path that's going to make it better for all of us.
Well, I mean, here is what I'd say. But you're right about the wake up thing, because if you're not going to wake up now and look around you, you never will. This is a once in a lifetime thing for all of us, isn't it?
I miss it so terribly. And I think that I think everybody does. I think it's not just the artist, and it's the fans for sure as well.
Well, listen, I'm sure there's a lot of people will be watching this thinking, I could do with 200 days away from my wife, husband, whatever, after this lockdown situation, but we'll see.
That's for sure. My wife will probably kick me out and tell me to stay on the road.
Yeah, demand that you don't come back for 200 days. But listen, Tim, it's been an absolute pleasure. The best of luck with the album and the live stream event. And maybe one day we'll be able to do this face to face.
I can't wait. Thank you.
Okay. All the best.
You too. Bye-bye.